It's always the same. You get lost in the rhythm of your day, typing away, clicking through emails, checking a few things off a list you didn't even make. The world moves like a machine, and you just follow along. That's what it was like for me. My apartment was quiet, except for the tapping of keys and the soft hum of my computer. I didn't notice the phone buzz at first. It's just one of those notifications you get every day. A like, a comment, an email from someone you forgot you knew. You get used to it. I kept typing, thinking about what I had to finish. Another report to wrap up before I called it a day. The light from my screen was the only thing keeping me focused. But then, it buzzed again, this time, a little louder. My phone screen flashed, lighting up the dim room with its sudden glow. Emergency alert, it said. Find immediate shelter. Toxic precipitation warning for your area. I glanced at it for a moment, dismissing it. Another spam message or some kind of alert that didn't apply to me. I've gotten them before, sure. So I shoved the phone back down on the desk and tried to ignore it. But then it buzzed again. And again. I stared at the screen. Emergency alert, it repeated. Toxic precipitation warning for your area. Something about it didn't sit right. Not the kind of warning you just brush off. Not the kind of thing you ignore. I felt it then, a weird tightening in my chest. That feeling when you know something's wrong, but you don't want to face it. Not yet. I pulled off my headphones, the sudden quiet of the room almost deafening. I could hear my breathing, faster now. My pulse, too. Was this real? I didn't know. Something didn't feel right. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just a mistake, right? A wrong button pressed somewhere. I glanced out the window, nothing out of the ordinary. The sky was a little darker than usual, but that didn't mean anything. I read the message again. I had to. The words were burned into my brain now. Toxic precipitation. I couldn't pull my eyes away from it. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, but it felt real. I couldn't just go back to typing. I couldn't. Everything felt different now. Not like I had imagined, not like the usual humdrum of my workday. It wasn't just the alert on my phone. It was something else. A shift. A change. I stood up, and everything inside me told me to ignore it, to keep working like I always did. But my mind wouldn't let go of the warning. Something felt terribly wrong. I stepped to the window and looked out, half expecting something, anything. A storm, maybe? A warning like this, you'd think there'd be something obvious. The sky was still that dull shade of gray. But it was darker than I remembered. I rubbed my eyes, thinking it was just the light playing tricks on me, but it stayed the same. Nothing unusual. I grabbed my phone, trying to load the weather app. It didn't respond. Nothing. No updates. The internet connection was gone. I tried to load a news website next. Still nothing. That feeling in the pit of my stomach kept growing. Something was off, and it wasn't just the phone. I walked back to the window, trying to shake it off. It's just a storm. A strange one, sure, but still a storm. Then it started. At first, it was small. Tiny, light drops hitting the glass. Then it got louder. Sharp. Like the sound of something metal striking the window. I couldn't tell if it was hail or rain at first. But no, this was different. It didn't sound like rain. Not even close. I stood there, staring. Watching. The drops left trails, almost like acid eating into the glass. No, not acid, just something that shouldn't be there. It wasn't normal. The way they ate into the window. That wasn't rain. That wasn't anything I'd ever seen before. The first instinct was to back away, to turn around, to hide. But my feet were stuck in place. I couldn't move. I couldn't stop watching. The rain was different. It didn't fall and wash away. It stayed. It marked the glass. It eaten the glass. I reached for my phone, the screen shaking in my hands. I had to call someone. I tried Emma, my sister. She'd know what to do. She always did. But when the call connected, all I heard was static. Then nothing. The line was cut. I tried again. Nothing. I wanted to scream. My throat felt tight. The rain was worse now, louder, harsher. It wasn't stopping. It was only getting stronger. What was this? Was I going crazy? What was happening? I couldn't stop watching. The rain hit harder now, splashing against everything in sight. I tried to look away, tried to focus on something, anything else. But the sight outside, what I was seeing, pulled me in, held me there. The cars weren't just getting wet. They were melting. The metal was warping, bending, changing shape as if the rain was dissolving everything it touched. It wasn't just the glass anymore. It was the cars, the metal parts. The sound of the rain on them wasn't like the soft patter of a storm anymore. It was a sharp, twisted noise, like metal being shredded. And then there were the people. Some were running. Their faces twisted in panic, fear spreading in waves as they sprinted for cover. But others just stood there. Not moving. Frozen in place. As if the rain had transfixed them. Their eyes were wide, staring upward, the water falling on them as they made no attempt to move, no attempt to escape. They were just standing there, waiting, like the rain had a hold on them. They looked like they had already accepted something that hadn't even fully happened yet. It was wrong. I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand. What was this? My phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with another message, and I didn't even need to read it to know. I knew what it would say. The same panic-laden words, just more specific now. Contamination levels rising. Do not attempt to contact precipitation. My hands shook. I didn't even realize they were shaking until I looked down. I couldn't pull my eyes away from the rain. I couldn't stop watching what it was doing. And then it hit me, I was feeling it too. I couldn't explain it. It started small, a tiny prickling sensation on my skin. It was like 1,000 needles poking me all over at once. I brushed at my arms, thinking it was just nerves. But no. It wasn't just my nerves. Something was happening. My breath caught as I stared at my hand. I felt the sensation intensify, but it wasn't pain. It wasn't like a burn. It was like my skin was changing, shifting beneath my fingers. I blinked, not sure if I was seeing it right. A patch of my skin, right there on my hand, had gone translucent. Not just pale or sickly looking. It was like it had turned into something clear. Like glass. It pulsed, like something was moving beneath it, something alive. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. The phone buzzed again, but I barely heard it. The world outside, the people, the cars, the rain, it was all a blur now. My body, my skin, was changing, just like everything else. I tried to call someone. Nick. I needed to hear his voice, to hear someone else, someone who could tell me this was just a nightmare. That's what I wanted to hear. But when he picked up, his voice wasn't the same. It was distorted, like there was something wrong with the connection. "Jake?" he asked, his voice rough. "Are you seeing this? What's happening?" I don't know what to." The line went dead. No static, no warning. Just silence. I called again. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I couldn't breathe. My hand still throbbed, the strange translucent skin spreading slowly up my arm. I could feel it. Feel it inside, crawling under my skin, shifting with a rhythm I couldn't understand. I pulled back from the window. I had to move. I had to get out. But the change. The way the world was changing, it felt like I couldn't escape it. I couldn't wait anymore. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, the hands moving faster than I wanted them to. The time was running out. My thoughts raced as I stood there, frozen in place, trying to figure out what to do. Every second that passed made the weight of the situation heavier. The rain outside wasn't slowing down, and I could feel the energy in the air, thick with something I couldn't name. I grabbed my rain jacket off the hook by the door. My hands felt heavy as I fumbled with the zipper. I didn't want to leave, but I had no choice. What could I do here? How much longer could I stay locked in this apartment while everything outside was falling apart? I knew the rain wasn't normal. I knew the changes I was seeing weren't something I could escape from. The pattern had already started to show itself. Translucent skin, glowing eyes, and the feeling that everyone around me was slowly being drawn into something that was beyond human comprehension. I looked down at my hand again. The skin on my forearm was growing, spreading further up, turning glassy, smooth, cold. I could see the veins under my skin, pulsing with that strange, glowing light. But I didn't have time to worry about that. Not now. Not when there was something more urgent, something bigger unfolding. I stepped into the hallway. The door creaked shut behind me, and the first thing I heard was chaos. People shouting. Voices rising in panic. The walls around me vibrated with a low hum, an electric buzz that I could feel under my skin. The emergency lights flickered overhead, the yellowish glow casting strange, unsettling shadows down the corridor. The voices grew louder. I could hear doors slamming, footsteps pounding, people rushing to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The building wasn't designed for this. The elevators were out, the stairwells blocked by a mass of people all trying to get out at once. The sound of fear, the sense of helplessness, it was everywhere. I pushed forward, my heart hammering in my chest, the air thick around me, almost suffocating. It felt heavier with each step I took, like the building was alive, groaning under the pressure of whatever was happening outside. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced myself to keep moving. I had to get to the street. I had to leave. As I moved down the hall, I saw faces I recognized, but they were unrecognizable in that moment, pale, wide-eyed, shaking. Everyone was trying to make sense of the storm. No one had the answers. And the deeper I moved into the hallway, the more I realized how little we all knew about what was happening. Then, I heard a voice, a familiar voice, call out from behind me. "Jake!" It was Sarah, my neighbor from down the hall. She was holding a small, overstuffed bag, her face pale with fear. Her breath came in short gasps as she ran up to me. "I'm heading to the subway," she said, her eyes darting nervously to the side. "It's the only place left. It's the only place that's still safe." Safe? Safe from what? I opened my mouth to ask her what she meant, but the words didn't come out. I was too distracted by the way her eyes were wide, almost too wide, and the way her skin seemed off. Her hands, holding the bag, were shaking. She was changing, just like me. Just like everyone else. The subway? I asked, my voice hoarse, like I hadn't spoken in days. But I wasn't sure where else to go, either. If Sarah thought the subway was our best shot, then maybe it was. Yeah, she said, her voice unsteady. I heard on the radio, people are gathering there. Some sort of shelter. I think it's our only hope. I didn't want to stay here, but I didn't know what else to do. I nodded, barely hearing the words as they left my mouth. Let's go. We left the building, and the moment I stepped outside, the world seemed to shift around me. The air was thick with something I couldn't quite place. I could feel it, the pressure in the air, almost like static electricity. But it wasn't just the weather, it was the rain. It hit me the moment I stepped out onto the street. Not like any storm I'd ever felt. It wasn't just wet. It burned. The rain came down in sheets, heavier now, with a force that made it feel like needles piercing my skin. I tried to brush it off, but it wasn't going away. It was all around us. As I looked around, I saw it happening to everyone else too. The people running down the street, trying to flee, it was as if the rain was doing something to them. Their skin was changing, just like mine. Their eyes, oh God, their eyes, glowed with that same, eerie light. I couldn't look away. There was something mesmerizing about it, something wrong about it. People were transforming right in front of me, their bodies shifting, their features becoming sharper, unnatural. I looked at my own hands again. The strange, translucent skin was spreading up my arms now, and it was pulsing. Like something inside of me was waking up, or maybe, taking over. The rain wasn't just harming us. It was changing us. It wasn't just making us sick, it was transforming us into something else. Something I couldn't fully understand. Sarah was walking beside me, but she wasn't the same person I remembered. Her eyes, too, were glowing, just like everyone else's. And I could see it in her, the pull. The change. I wasn't sure if I was afraid of it anymore, or if I was beginning to embrace it. And then we saw them. A group of people, standing still in the middle of the street, their bodies frozen in place. Their skin was no longer human, it was something else entirely. Glowing. Translucent. Alive. And their eyes. I could feel them looking at me, not just seeing me, but understanding me. One of them looked directly at me, and for the briefest moment, I felt like I was supposed to be with them. I didn't want to admit it, but the urge was there. Something deep inside me stirred. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Before I could look away, another person in the crowd screamed in agony, the kind of scream that tore through the air like a living thing. I turned to see him drop to his knees, his body convulsing, his muscles spasming. The rain hit him harder, and he twisted, his form changing, bending, reshaping, as the transformation overtook him. Then, just as quickly, he disappeared into the crowd. He was gone, lost to whatever the rain was doing. And I couldn't tell if I wanted to run or stay and see it through. The world was becoming something else, and I could feel the change happening to me. To Sarah. To everyone around us. We were no longer just running from the storm. We were becoming part of it. We finally reached the subway entrance, breathless, hearts pounding in our chests. The metal doors to the underground were cracked open, and a few survivors huddled together inside. The moment I stepped through the opening, I was hit by the stale, damp air. The sharp smell of rust mixed with the faint scent of fear. It was everything I had hoped would be a haven, but it wasn't. Not anymore. The tension in the air was suffocating. There was no comfort down here. No safe place. The survivors' faces were twisted in anxiety, eyes darting around nervously as if they too could feel what was coming. The walls, the concrete, the floor, all were showing signs of the transformation, just like everything else outside. The rain wasn't stopping. It was making its way through the cracks in the walls, slowly seeping in, like a silent invader. I could hear it, drip, 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 each drop a reminder that this place wasn't safe. It wasn't even close. Sarah and I moved further into the shelter, but it felt as if we were descending into something darker. The transformation wasn't just happening outside anymore. It was creeping in here, too. I could see the same glimmer under the skin of the survivors around us. They were changing. They didn't look human anymore. And Sarah? Her skin was glowing, faintly at first, but unmistakable. It was happening to her too. The same thing was happening to me. I could feel the pressure on my chest. My breath grew shallow. Something was wrong. But not just wrong, different. I turned to Sarah. Her face was pale, but it wasn't just fear. It was something deeper. Her skin shimmered with that strange light, and I could see the faint patterns underneath, pulsing, moving in time with the storm outside. It was like the rain was living, and we were becoming part of it. Something inside me wanted to reach out, to tell her that it was okay, that we weren't alone in this. But the words wouldn't come. Then, a sharp pain hit my chest. It felt like a vice was closing in on my ribcage. I gasped for air, but it only made the pain worse. It was as if something inside me was shifting, forcing its way to the surface. My body was rebelling, changing. I looked down at my hands, and the glassy skin was spreading up my arm, covering me like a blanket. It wasn't painful, but it wasn't comfortable either. It was unnatural, and yet, strangely right. I felt something stir deep within me, something beyond fear. There was a strange comfort in the pain, in the change. It was as if I had always been meant for this, for whatever was coming next. The part of me that wanted to fight it, to run, was growing quieter. I wanted to resist, but I couldn't. It was taking over. Inside the shelter, the survivors were doing what they could to fortify themselves. They were gathering together, making plans, trying to create a sense of control in a place that had long since lost it. But none of us could stop the rain. It was relentless, hammering down on the metal, on the walls, seeping through the cracks. There was no shelter from it. There was no safety. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the others, my mind racing. Some of them had already given in, their bodies glowing, their features shifting with the transformation. Others were still fighting, struggling to hold on to their humanity as the change took root. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. I checked the screen, but it wasn't a message from anyone I knew. It was just another alert. A final warning. The final stage is beginning. Full transformation will occur within hours. I read the words over and over, as if seeing them more than once would make them somehow less true. But deep down, I knew it was inevitable. The change had already started, and I could feel it inside me. The rain had been the catalyst, but now, it was part of us. I was becoming part of it. I had a choice. I could try to resist it, but I could already feel the transformation pulsing beneath my skin, in my bones, in the air around me. I couldn't escape it. And I didn't want to anymore. I looked up at the others. Some of them were looking at me, watching, waiting for me to make my move. I could feel their gaze on me, the silent understanding that we were all in this together, whether we wanted to be or not. I took a deep breath, feeling the strange energy that had filled the air since the storm first hit. It was electric. Alive. And as much as I had fought it before, now, I felt a pull toward it. A pull that felt like destiny. I stepped forward, leaving the shadows behind me, and moved toward the center of the room. The light from the cracked ceiling above illuminated the room, casting strange reflections on the walls, on the faces around me. My eyes were glowing now, the same strange light as the others. The patterns on my skin were clearer, more defined. I could feel the pulse of them, just like the storm outside. I reached out, my hand trembling, and for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of what I was becoming. I was embracing it. This wasn't an end. It was the beginning of something new. I felt the air change around me. It hummed, and the storm outside, which had been raging for what felt like days, suddenly felt close. I could hear it now, in the space between my breaths, like a whisper in my mind. The storm was no longer just something outside. It was inside me too. And it was calling me. Calling all of us. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the energy fill me. There was no going back. There never had been. When I opened my eyes again, the storm was no longer just a storm. It was us. I looked up toward the sky. The clouds had darkened, swirling with a light that matched the glow in my veins. The rain began to fall harder, heavier, but it didn't matter anymore. We were ready. We had always been ready. I reached my hand up toward the sky. It wasn't the end of the world. It was the beginning of something new. And as the rain continued to fall, I smiled. The transformation was complete.